Every town has its stories. They're the kind whispered around campfires on cool summer nights, or shared over a beer at the local bar, growing taller and more embellished with each telling. These stories become part of the town's identity, woven into the fabric of its history and folklore. In the 1980s, Aberdeen, Maryland, a quiet town nestled in the Maryland countryside, became the unlikely center of one such legend. It was a legend of something wild, something untamed, the Aberdeen Wildman. This wasn't a ghost, a spirit returning from beyond the grave, or a mythical beast, a creature of pure fantasy and imagination. It was something raw, unsettlingly human, a figure that blurred the lines between man and animal, something familiar, yet not quite, something that defied easy categorization. Locals described it as a feral being, a creature of the woods. It was said to be haunting the woods and marshes surrounding Aberdeen, a shadowy presence lurking just out of sight. Leaving fear and fascination in its wake, the Wildman became a fixture of local lore. Back then, before the internet and instant information, legends could grow unchecked, fueled by rumor and speculation. And Aberdeen's proximity to the proving ground, a military testing facility, only fueled the mystery, adding another layer of intrigue to the already strange tale. The Wildman wasn't about military secrets or government conspiracies. It was something primal, something far older and more fundamental, a rejection of civilization itself, a return to a more basic way of life. People who'd always felt safe and secure in those woods, who had walked those trails without a second thought, suddenly looked over their shoulders, wondering what might be lurking in the shadows. The idea of a wild man living off the grid, surviving in the wilderness, beyond society's reach, free from its rules and constraints, was both terrifying and strangely compelling, a dark mirror reflecting our own complicated relationship with nature. It tapped into our fear of the unknown, the things that go bump in the night. Lurking just beyond suburbia, a reminder that the wild is never truly gone. For Aberdeen, this wasn't just a story, a bit of harmless local color. It was a possibility that walked on two legs, a potential threat lurking in the woods. Reports of strange howls echoing through the night, glimpses of a large, hairy figure darting between the trees, and the unsettling sense of being watched, of unseen eyes following your every move, spread quickly through the town. The legend became a local boogeyman, a figure of fear and dread, a cautionary tale for kids, a warning to stay out of the woods after dark. But for Frank Bennett, a local resident with a passion for the outdoors, it would become a terrifying, life-altering reality, an experience that would forever change his perception of the world. His encounter would challenge everything he thought he knew about the world, forcing him to confront the darkness that lurks just beyond the edge of the light. To truly understand the legend of the Aberdeen Wildman, a creature whispered about in hushed tones and local lore, we need to step into the boots of Frank Bennett, to experience what he experienced, to feel the chill he felt that fateful night. We need to walk alongside him, if only in our minds. It was a cold winter night in 1984, the kind of night where the air bites at your skin and the silence is so profound it almost hums. The woods near Bush River were stark and silent, the trees like skeletal fingers reaching towards a moonless sky. Every shadow seemed deeper, every rustle of leaves amplified in the stillness. It was a place Frank knew well, a familiar haunt. He had walked these paths countless times, in all seasons, under all kinds of weather. He wasn't hunting monsters or seeking out the unknown, just enjoying the peace and solitude that the woods offered, a respite from the everyday world. It was a routine he cherished, a way to reconnect with nature as he'd done countless times before. The forest was his sanctuary. The sun had long since set, casting long, distorted shadows that stretched and danced between the bare trees, playing tricks on the eye, and the world was painted in cold blues and grays, a monochrome landscape that seemed to drain the color from everything, leaving only the stark reality of the winter woods. It was a typical winter evening, unremarkable in every way, the kind of night you might easily forget. Just a calm forest night, a peaceful woodland scene, nothing to suggest the horror that was about to unfold. That very normalcy, that sense of utter ordinariness, is precisely what made what happened next so profoundly disturbing, so deeply unsettling. Frank sat in his truck, the only sign of human presence in the vast expanse of the woods. Parked on a secluded dirt road, a forgotten track winding deep into the heart of the forest, he was soaking in the quiet, letting the stillness wash over him. Dusk settled, slowly but surely. that liminal space, that in-between time when the world seems to hold its breath, suspended between day and night, light and darkness. It is said that this is when strange things happen, when the rules of reality seem to loosen their grip, when the veil between worlds thins, allowing glimpses of things unseen, of possibilities beyond our everyday understanding. And for Frank, on that cold winter night, the woods were about to become a stage, a dramatic setting for an encounter with the unimaginable, something that would forever alter his perception of reality. Utterly alone, with no one to hear his cries, no one to offer assistance, no lifeline to the outside world, his solitude, his isolation, would soon amplify the terror, turning a disquieting experience into a nightmare he would never escape. Out there in the deepening gloom, where the shadows danced and the trees whispered secrets to the wind, something was stirring, something ancient and malevolent, something that should have remained hidden in the darkness. The forest held its breath, an eerie silence blanketing the ancient trees. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, seemed amplified in the still night air. Then, suddenly, the silence broke. Frank, his senses on high alert, scanned the darkness. He noticed movement near a large oak tree, a flicker of shadow that didn't quite belong. Something was there, lurking just beyond the reach of his flashlight beam. As he strained his eyes trying to pierce the gloom, he saw it. Perched 20 feet up, nestled amongst the thick branches, was a figure. Humanoid, but not quite human. It possessed a familiar shape, yet something was profoundly off, a subtle distortion of the human form that sent a shiver down Frank's spine. It was big, powerfully built, its frame suggesting immense strength and agility. It was a creature seemingly designed for survival in this harsh, unforgiving wilderness, with broad shoulders and long limbs, giving it a somewhat simian appearance. Its muscles were clearly defined, even in the dim light, hinting at a life of physical exertion. The creature wore a dark, ragged, sleeveless hooded garment, seemingly fashioned from rough-spun material, more primitive than modern, suggesting a detachment from the comforts and advancements of civilization. It was clothing born of necessity, not of choice. Its skin was pale, almost gray, as if it had spent its entire existence shielded from the sun, contrasting starkly with the dark greens and browns of the woods and its own drab clothing. It was a pallor that spoke of a life lived in the shadows. The face was long, gaunt, and haunting, a visage that seemed etched with the hardships of its existence, high cheekbones, skeletal, emphasizing the hollows of its cheeks and the deep-set nature of its eyes. It was a face marked by a life lived wild, exposed to the elements and untouched by the gentle hand of civilization. Their eyes met, a connection forged across the chasm of understanding, large, dark, and devoid of white, giving them an unsettling, almost alien quality, like two black pools reflecting the endless night, drawing Frank into their unfathomable depths. There was intelligence there, a spark of awareness that belied its primitive appearance but wild and feral, untamed by the constraints of human society, a raw and primal intellect. Frank saw profound sadness in those eyes, a weight of untold stories and unimaginable experiences, a look of isolation and ancient sorrow, as if it carried the burden of centuries within its very being. In that moment, Frank felt both terror and pity, a strange duality of emotions warring within him. The creature's hair was dark, matted, and crudely cut, as if it had been hacked at with a dull blade, almost bowl-like, hinting at a strange self-awareness, a rudimentary attempt at grooming in its own peculiar way. This wasn't just a wild animal, this was something more complex, something that defied simple categorization. It was something that defied easy explanation, a mystery wrapped in flesh and bone, challenging Frank's understanding of the world. It sat in the tree, watching him with an unnerving intensity, its gaze unwavering, a puzzle of flesh and bone, a living enigma that challenged everything Frank thought he knew. Frank realized he wasn't just seeing a monster, a creature of nightmare and legend. He was seeing something far more profound. He was witnessing a sentient, suffering being, trapped between two worlds, belonging to neither. The encounter was about to escalate, the fragile peace shattered by the weight of unspoken questions and the looming threat of the unknown. The standoff felt endless. Frank reached for his spotlight, hoping to see more clearly. The beam hit the creature and everything changed. Its sorrow vanished, replaced by explosive, primal fury. The creature let out a scream, high-pitched, part human, part animal, all terror. It thrashed on the branch, shaking it with raw power, beating its fists against the trunk. Frank was paralyzed, watching as the creature's rage filled the woods. Then, with a final shriek, it launched itself sideways into the canopy. It swung from branch to branch with shocking agility, vanishing into the darkness. The screams faded, leaving only silence and a trembling man in a truck. The woods, once a sanctuary, now felt like a cage. The Aberdeen Wildman had disappeared as suddenly as it appeared. Frank was left alone, forever changed. The legend was no longer just a story, it was real. The silence after the creature's departure was heavier than its screams. I sat in my truck, heart pounding, mind racing. The woods were no longer peaceful, they were haunted by what I'd seen. I wasn't just a man enjoying nature anymore, I was a witness to the impossible. The fear, awe, and confusion hit me all at once. I drove away, but the experience followed me. Who could I tell? Who would believe me? The burden of such a secret is isolating, making you question your sanity. Eventually I confided in an old-timer from the area. Instead of ridicule, he nodded knowingly. Others had seen or heard things too. Tales of a wild man in the swamps had circulated for years. Suddenly, I wasn't alone. My story was part of a larger local mystery. I had become part of the legend of the Aberdeen Wildman. I couldn't let the experience go, I needed answers. A few days later I returned to the site with a friend. In daylight the woods seemed less menacing, but the memory lingered. We found the oak tree, its branch marked with fresh scrapes and gouges, a sign of real struggle. It was the first physical evidence that something powerful had been there. We searched the ground for hours hoping for footprints or hair, but the forest floor gave up nothing. No clear prints, no scraps of clothing, no tufts of hair. The absence of evidence was maddening. It was as if the creature had passed through without leaving a trace. I'd seen and heard it, saw the damage, but the ground offered nothing. The woods kept their secrets. Word of my story spread, attracting paranormal investigators and cryptozoologists. They interviewed me, checked the site, and confirmed the marks on the tree. The dense, swampy terrain seemed perfect for something that didn't want to be found. But like us, they found no solid evidence. No tracks, no hair, nothing conclusive. In cryptozoology, a strong eyewitness account isn't enough without proof. The investigation stalled, the mystery as deep as the swamp. Skeptics pointed to the lack of evidence. Believers wondered if the creature was just that elusive. Maybe it was smart enough to hide, or maybe it wasn't entirely physical. The Aberdeen Wildman remained a powerful story, life-changing but unproven. The legend lingered unresolved. With no proof, speculation ran wild. Was the Aberdeen Wildman a cryptid? An unknown primate like Bigfoot? Its appearance and behavior fit the profile, and maybe a hidden population survived in the swamps. Or was it a feral human? Someone who'd left society behind, clinging to a primitive existence? That would explain the crude clothing and haunted eyes. Could it have been a hoax? Unlikely, given the creature's agility and the lack of motive. Or was it a myth, a tulpa, a thought form brought to life by collective belief? The legend existed long before my encounter. Maybe the community's belief gave it fleeting reality. In the absence of answers, all possibilities remain on the table. The Wildman defied explanation. Why do stories like the Aberdeen Wildman endure? They remind us that mystery still exists, even in a world mapped and cataloged. These legends connect us to place and community, becoming part of local identity. The Wildman isn't just my story. It belongs to Aberdeen. It turns ordinary woods into places of wonder and fear. Such tales spark curiosity and pride, making us see our world differently. For explorers, these stories are the breadcrumbs that lead us into the unknown. The lack of evidence lets the legend grow, fueling imagination. It keeps us asking, what if? The Wildman is about the line between wild and civilized, known and unknown. The wilderness is always out there, waiting on the edges. Sometimes it looks back at us with sad, dark eyes. The truth is still out there,